discuss the four charges facing the former commander in chief. It's a doozy. There's no denying. I'm gonna see if I can get my other device to working, but there is no denying that what President Trump is facing is a doozy. Now, the reason I'm doing this live is because there is a host of folks questioning whether Trump did anything wrong at all. Some folks are already ready to pin the rope around his neck and say he's guilty of every damn thing. And then, of course, there are folks who are suggesting he did nothing at all. So what we're going to be talking about today are the actual charges facing the commander-in-chief and, of course, what is basically turning out to look like whether he's guilty or not. So, because I hear a lot of folks, the reason I'm bringing this to you, I hear a lot of folks suggest that he has First Amendment rights, First Amendment free speech rights. Anybody who watches the program here, you absolutely know, you're totally aware. Yours truly, I am a huge proponent of First Amendment free speech rights. So that certainly should be extended to the commander-in-chief. He has the right to speak. In this case, the First Amendment is being used, and this is what is sounding like the defense for President Trump. Not necessarily that the election was stolen and he won by a landslide, more or less that I have the right to free speech, even if what I'm saying is not true. Other politicians have, basically lied about things. Why am I being charged and nobody else is? So what I want to give you is the breakdown of what he's being charged with, give you my humble opinion on it, and and whether I think it's bullshit or whether I think it's some legitimate charges. Now, Jack Smith charged him with 4 charges the other day. Now, we're only talking about the January 6th indictment. We're not going to be talking about the documents case, and certainly not the case in New York about paying off Stormy Daniels with campaign funds. We're talking about what just happened the other day. Charge number 1 is inciting an insurrection. Make no mistake about it, they are blaming him for what happened on January 6th. I understand many of my, my followers that support President Trump certainly welcome on the program. The program is and always will remain MAGA friendly. I say that on every program. But I'm just giving it to you, hopefully from somewhat of an unbiased perspective. I'm not trying to be biased. I'm trying to give you my opinion, and I certainly look forward to your opinions on upcoming shows, which is kind of why I did it this way, just to kind of get the point out in the open. Number 1, like I said, inciting an insurrection. So they're blaming what happened on January 6th on President Trump, and they're certainly not referring to it as a love fest or a peaceful protest. They're calling it an insurrection. Number 2, conspiring to defraud the United States. Now, I'm going to go over all the charges, but then we're going to go into them in detail. Conspiring to defraud the United States. There's a host of issues in regards to what that means. Keep in mind there's an accusation about fake electors. That is certainly going to be a big issue in regards to trying to defraud the United States. Number 3, conspiring to obstruct an official proceeding. Now, we'll talk about that, but obviously the smooth transition of power on January 6th is your official proceeding. That is why the Senate, Congress, and Vice President Mike Pence, that's why they all were there that day. It was basically an official proceeding. That's how you transfer power from one leader to the next. And that was Mike Pence's job to do that. Look at it in the comments on YouTube. They trying to stop that man. They're scared. Well, we're talking about someone is suggesting that they're trying to stop President Trump because they're frightened of him. Maybe so. They got a guy who was inciting that on the news, inciting that on the news, nothing to do with Trump. That shouldn't have anything to do with him anymore. No, it's not over. Listen to President Trump's speech before the riot, what I heard him say patriotically and peacefully protest. We'll talk about that. Number 4, I said number 3 is conspiring to obstruct an official proceeding. And last but not least, conspiring against people's civil rights to have their vote counted. Now, they worded it as conspiring against rights. That's how it was worded. But this is what we're talking about. Conspiring against people's civil rights to have their basically trying to prohibit someone from exercising their constitutional rights. So that is conspiring against people's rights. Those are the four. Now, let's talk about conspiring to defraud the United States. Now, there are 6 co-conspirators that are involved with this indictment. They are named. 5 of them are named. There's one that is simply listed as a political consultant. I'm always curious when they don't name the individual, because that probably means you may have someone working with the federal government. In my humble opinion, it wouldn't surprise me if most of the co-conspirators end up working with the federal government. I'm going to give it to the Trump supporters when they say that the goal is to prevent him from running again. I do believe that is part of the goal. And the co-conspirators are certainly not as big of a target by any means as President Trump. So if a co-conspirator is willing to work with the government, I think they can damn near get close to immunity, because they don't want, listen, Rudolph Giuliani was knee deep in this shit. So was Sidney Powell. They don't give a damn about locking up Giuliani or Sidney Powell. They want President Trump. So I'm not going to deny that, even as a liberal, that the target is President Trump. But that doesn't mean just because he is the target, he is innocent. That just means maybe they're going after him harder than the rest of the people. And real quick, I will respond to the notion that many folks are suggesting, well, they didn't go after Hillary Clinton, or they didn't go after Bill Clinton or Barack Obama or some of the former presidents for lying. I just want to point out, going to court, if you're ever charged with anything and using the system is unfair and treating me differently than somebody else, that almost never will work. It's like going to court to answer a speeding ticket and pointing out other people were speeding on the highway. That, snitching on others as a defense virtually never works. So for folks who are pointing out that, Trump is being charged with lying, or Trump is being charged with something that nobody else didn't get charged with, that may be a legitimate point to make, but it never works in a court of law to get you off. I would submit to you that every single thing you could ever be charged with in this country, someone else has did that and either got away with it or were not charged at all. From murder on down to jaywalking, somebody else has done it, got away, and did not face charges for it. You can't go to court and bring up that somebody else got away with something. It sounds good. I understand MAGA loves it, but at the end of the day, that's not going to get you any damn where. But continuing on, so let's just be clear. Yeah, suggesting that the system is unfair to him versus somebody else, I don't see any type of avenue for success to that, other than to get MAGA, Trump supporters, and maybe some independents to sympathize with him, but that's not going to work as a viable defense. Now, these fake electors, and looking in the comments, what's the call? Well, actually, there's not one tonight. You just in the comments, I see that somebody said, what's the call number on YouTube? It's just having a spiel on this. I normally do it during the day. Some of the subscribers on TikTok can actually type in comments, but really I just wanted to run this by you folks. So when we do the live stream tomorrow, those viewers will know what the hell we're talking about. They can push back. You can tell your host, you can tell me I'm full of shit all day long. We will debate the topics. I'm going to challenge you in your opinion, but I just wanted to run it by you folks. So in regards to conspiracy to defraud the United States, if these fake electors, and here's the name of the 6 co-defendants or co-conspirators that were posing as fake electors, according to the indictment from Jack Smith, was to overturn the election in a host of states. They got 7 states. We already know where they are. Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, I believe. What it says, El Libro Guapo. You great. Appreciate that, Mega Lion. Thank you for that donation. Appreciate that. Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, Pennsylvania. That's 5. Where am I missing out on? There's got to, because they said 7 states. But I definitely know those 5 for certain. Let me think again. Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia. There's got to be something I'm missing on. But anyhow, they're suggesting that the fake electors were trying to help President Trump overturn the results in those states by using fake, phony federal documents. They were posing as fake electors. That's why they're calling them that. And using, fake documents to get the job done, which in itself is a federal crime. Now, those named are Rudolph Giuliani, obviously, and Giuliani's in every fucking thing. He really threw New Mexico. Somebody, I see user guy 9062 said New Mexico was one of the states. Okay. But, yeah, it's crazy that Rudolph Giuliani, America's mayor, he's already wealthy, had plenty of power, name recognition, a lot of love in New York City after 9/11. Why he got so deeply involved in this, I do not know. I appreciate that, I can't read the name there, but say you one of the only liberals I find decent. Appreciate that comment. So, the fake electors being Rudolph Giuliani, Sidney Powell, President Trump's attorney at the time. And if you folks who know, Sidney Powell is the one who is also knee-deep in the Dominion voting machine scandal. So is Rudolph Giuliani. John Eastman, I forgot what his position is. Kenneth Chesborough. There's Jeffrey Clark, who is a justice official, and they do have what's named as a political consultant. They didn't give the name of that last person, so I kind of wonder if that individual's not working with the government. But that is 6 people that are charged as co-conspirators in a conspiracy to defraud the United States. I'm fairly certain that Jack Smith would love to flip any of them and give them damn near all complete immunity just to get them to trick off on President Trump. Now, in addition to that, there is Mike Pence. I didn't cue up his audio. I thought about doing it, but I didn't cue up Mike Pence's audio. But Mike Pence is also singing, and he's doing it publicly. He's not even trying to hide that he, too, was being pressured by President Trump to change the election results. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up is because when I say conspiracy against someone's constitutional rights, that is listed as they criminalize any joint effort to injure, oppress, threaten, intimidate, or interfere with people from enjoying their constitutional rights. This was a law put in place after the Civil War against the KKK because they were doing that to minorities to prevent them from voting. And this is what they're suggesting that President Trump was doing, was trying to prevent folks from enjoying their constitutional right of voting with those fake electors because they were trying to literally throw out legitimate votes. Now, if you are aware, this is exactly what President Trump has accused everybody else of doing, is that the liberals were throwing out votes. Remember the mom and daughter duo at the Georgia ballot office? They too are now suing Giuliani and Powell for suggesting that they were cheating. And that's where the whole issue, I want to bring that up because when folks say that Trump had a First Amendment right to say things that are not true, that's what I want to point out is that even if he has a First Amendment right to say things that are not true, he is injuring people. That mother and daughter duo has stated that they had to move. They feel uncomfortable going out the house. They're receiving death threats everywhere. Same thing is happening with Ray Epps. For you folks who may be aware, Ray Epps is the one that has been accused of inciting the January 6th riots. He was supposedly a Trump supporter that was in the crowd just like all the other protesters. But Trump and a lot of the supporters have used him as a scapegoat to suggest he not only incited the riots, but he worked for the federal government. He is also suing on the grounds that he's receiving a bunch of death threats and they made up a bunch of shit about him. This is what I want to talk about when we say the First Amendment free speech rights. You don't have to be honest. There's no law requiring you be honest. But you cannot destroy people in the process. And what's happened to Ray Epps and what's happened to that mother and daughter poll official combo out there in Georgia really has ruined their lives. Making this stuff up, really. Same thing with Dominion voting machines. I mean, you basically was on the cusp of destroying a company. You can't just make up shit and go around the country saying that this stuff is factual and destroying people's businesses. Now, that is what has to be litigated in court, is that do you have a First Amendment right to destroy people because you have free speech? Now, in addition to all of this, President Trump in his defense team is suggesting that he truly believes the election was stolen from him. This is where you're going to have a difficult time with Jack Smith is going to have a challenging time, and that is he has to prove that President Trump knew he lost the election, yet continued to lie about it anyway. And that's what I would want to propose to some of my Trump supporters, some of my beloved MAGA. This will come up on the live broadcast tomorrow. Would it make a difference if you found out to the point where you actually believe President Trump knew he had lost? Now, I understand you don't think that. But let's say, for instance, you heard enough evidence, heard enough recordings, heard enough testimony that you felt fairly confident that at the time of January 6th, when Trump was giving the protest, or leading the protest, giving a speech at the protest, he actually knew he had lost and yet was telling the people that he had won. Would that make a difference if you found out and you were confident based on the information that Jack Smith is going to produce? Would it make a difference if you found out that he actually knew days before that he lost the election, but decided to go there and lie and say he won anyway? Because, of course, we know that is the defense, is that he has First Amendment free speech rights, and he was only saying what he truly believed had happened, and that is that the election was stolen. But what if you find out through whatever Jack Smith releases that he knew, that he was fairly certain? Not only did he know he had lost the election, but he actually repeated that he had lost to some of his close advisors. I'm asking that question because several of his advisors have stated that he did just that. That he actually told them phrases like, "Can you believe I lost to this dumb guy?" or some shit like that. "Can you actually believe I lost to this motherfucker?" That's what I'm saying, is that if you found out that he actually knew and decided to go there and rile people up and tell them otherwise, do you still think that is protected by First Amendment? Just want to know that. Is this the part where you are using the First Amendment to wildly speculate? Emball, yes, it is. This is the part where I'm speculating what avenue can the president take in suggesting that the First Amendment protects him. We all are protected by free speech. That's what we're saying here. But is there any line that you cannot cross? Can you just say any damn thing? Can you call up 911 and say that I just murdered 3 people? And when they show up, you haven't done anything, and well, it's free speech. I don't get in any trouble for that. Is there a line where you cannot cross? That's what we're talking about. To the point where you start harming people with your free speech rights. Is there any line to that at all? That is what we're talking about. And as I said earlier in the broadcast, another issue you hear, I don't know if you really hear from Trump's legal team, because I think they're smart enough to know it doesn't work in court. But you're hearing it to gain sympathy from a public opinion standpoint. And that is that President Trump is not being treated like, say, Al Gore when he said the election was stolen from him, or say Hillary Clinton when she suggested the election was stolen from her. That is a legitimate point to make in terms of trying to gather public sympathy. However, I just mentioned earlier, that's not going to work in court. Going in court and snitching on somebody that got away with something earlier, I don't know if I've ever heard of a case where that works. It's a difference if the court's litigated on a case. Then you can bring it up as precedence. But bringing up the acts of somebody who's never charged with something, just going to court as a snitch, when he was selling drugs down the block, why y'all didn't arrest him? That's not going to work. That is not going to work. So I don't expect President Trump's team to go to court and actually try to argue with a judge that somebody else didn't get charged. Because if that is allowed, as I stated before, every single American charged with a crime can point to somebody else who committed the same crime and did not get charged with it. Everybody can do that. Looking in the comments, user guy says, none of these charges are based upon speech, but rather criminal actions and intent. Well, one of them is the claim that he incited an insurrection. That one is, for the most part, based on his speech, what he was saying up there, which is why he's suggesting I had a First Amendment free speech right to say that. But you are correct. Even though Trump is using First Amendment free speech rights as his primary defense, I would submit that three of those charges, yeah, they have nothing to do with speech at all. We're talking about conspiring against people's civil rights to have their vote counted. You can't use free speech as a reason to defend against that. Same thing with conspiring to obstruct an official proceeding. Now, keep in mind, in regards to that particular charge on the indictment, conspiring to obstruct an official proceeding, that proceeding was successfully obstructed. Remember, they had to stop and they didn't start back till like 8 or 9 o'clock that night. So the transfer of power that Mike Pence led, it was obstructed. That did happen. Now we can say that Trump had nothing to do with it. That's what the whole court case is about. But they did obstruct that proceeding, and that's what they're charging Trump with. And like I said, conspiring to defraud the United States, the fake electors. I think that is a fairly open and shut case. If they can show, these folks are using phony paperwork, phony documents, trying to basically overturn the election in these different states. I don't think that's a hard case to show. Now, we understand what typically happens is folks that orbit around Trump get in trouble and Trump usually survives. My guess is they're going to have a pretty easy time proving that the co-conspirators were involved in it, and Trump is going to try to say, well, it wasn't me. These people were all, as Shaggy was saying, it wasn't me. So it's going to be one of those cases where all of these people were committing crimes on my behalf, but I was totally innocent by it. But this is where the phone calls, this is where any audio recordings come into play. Now, keep in mind, for my beloved MAGA side of the aisle, I don't know if there's any testimony that is going to change their mind. Because you got Mike Pence already testifying and saying things. You got several other members that were within his inner circle that have been testifying and saying, if you truly support Trump, you're going to dismiss any testimony you hear. Doesn't matter how close the person was. Like I said, we're talking about Mike Pence. That's his second in charge. Already, all of Mike Pence's testimony has been deemed as lacking credibility.
How are you? Hold on, let me try to get a better connection.
Good. I'm doing real good.
It's a little choppy. I'm going to try to get on the Wi-Fi and see if I can. Hold on. Can you hear me better?
Okay. Yeah, I hear you loud and clear.
Okay.
Partly because he was
So
mayor
yeah,
of New
no.
York City during that.
The question.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, the question you have, obviously, Trump, did he break any laws? Obviously,
Right.
we know that he definitely went out of his way to try to overturn the election because he told Mike Pence, in Mike Pence's own words, to throw it out. And that's what Mike Pence said. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to challenge things. He said something along the lines of, you're too honest, I believe is the words he used to
You're
Mike
too
Pence,
honest.
right?
He said too honest. Yeah, he said. Yeah, he told Mike Pence you're too honest. Let me ask you in regards to Mike Pence, because Mike Pence took notes because he believed what Trump was doing was possibly a crime. But Mike Pence does not have actual audio, so I have to ask you: is Mike Pence credible, considering he is seeking to have the same position as Trump is seeking?
Well, I think Mike Pence has his moral high ground where he can run on the notion that he followed the Constitution, that he did everything that, as he says, his Almighty God told him to do, and also the Constitution told him to do. So I think that's going to be that is his. I mean, I think that helps him a little bit with some people, but obviously the MAGA base is going to support Donald Trump no matter what. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, we can sit here and Donald Trump can do anything he wants to do, including send out a Truth Social tonight where he essentially threatens the judge that just arraigned him yesterday. He's saying, if you come after me, I come after you. I mean, if that's any other person, they're getting locked up, right?
You know, I will say this. I've heard a number of folks that support Trump talk about the system is unfair. We have a two-tier justice system, and I don't totally agree with you that calling prosecutors and judges all types of names and things like that Trump has done. He has certainly been treated better than any other American that does stuff like that. You're right. Any other American that does that would be held in contempt, probably would get at least 30 days in jail just for the sake of it. He's been treated pretty nicely considering how bad he's been acting in court.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing to me that we still have people that are going to go to bat for this man after all of the things that he has done. And it's not just like he went out and challenged the election like he says. He claims, well, I was doing what I was supposed to do. No, you weren't. You went out of your way to try to overturn the election. And not only did you do that, you then went to states across the United States of America and tried to get fake electors to overthrow their own election in their state. And I mean, at some point, you just have to go, man, what the hell was this guy doing other than trying to avoid being held accountable for what he, in my opinion, his New York legal issues that he was having. I believe that he was trying to get away from that so he could stay president, let the statute of limitations expire, and then be saved from that. Now, a lot of people will tell you the New York case isn't that strong, but in his head, he obviously thought it was because he went so far out of his way to stay in office. And the only solution, or the only reason that I have heard as to why he really wanted to do that, was to allow that statute of limitations to expire in New York. So could you imagine?
So,
Oh, go ahead.
let me ask you this though. In the comments, we talked about the threat that he made to this judge in D.C. User guy in the comments said that is just a general threat to everyone, as opposed to this judge specifically. Do you see any case of that? Do you believe it's aimed right at that judge, or you think it's just a general threat to not mess with him?
I just think I think that it could be a threat to everyone who is against him. However, it still applies to the judges because he is, by not saying it directly, he's still applying it, in my opinion. He's still saying, like, if you come after me, like he's talking about Jack Smith. I mean, listen to the things he said about Jack Smith. I mean, he sent out a True Social the other night,
Yeah.
basically bringing up his family, saying something about his wife again, and it's just like this guy has no legal. Whoever is advising him on all of these is doing a horrible job because you don't say those
I don't
things.
think, yeah, well, in regards to whoever is advising Trump on a bad job, let's just be clear. If you do not advise Trump in the way that he wants you to, he'll fire you. So they're only doing what they can actually do. Trump doesn't take advice very well.
No, he doesn't take advice well, and he doesn't listen to anybody, so it's impossible it's like a child that has ADHD, like myself growing up, who needs like medication to relax, and then you can't even keep them under control because they're acting a fool out here. Like, they're just acting a fool. I mean, what the hell? I mean, it's like a kid. He's a 77-year-old kid. And yesterday in court, when they asked him his age, he didn't say 77. He said 77. I don't know what the hell that was. That was weird. I don't know. That's just a sidebar.
I've never heard anybody
Seven
say that.
seven.
So at the end of the day, let me ask you. That's a crazy ass to say how old you are, but somebody in the comments said TDS is a wicked thing. In other words, Trump derangement syndrome. Talking about Trump. How do you view folks who suggest talking about probably one of the most popular people in this country right now, whether good or bad, but the most well-known person in this country right now gives you Trump derangement syndrome? What do you do with something like that?
Well, the thing I love about Trump derangement syndrome is it's like, oh, you're talking about Trump. Oh, but Donald Trump is actually running for president again. And oh, Donald Trump is, actually in the news because he wants to be in the news, but yet you're angry because everybody's talking about him when he's not president. But you know that
Right.
like he is running for president. He is the front runner for the party. So what are we just not going to talk about him because like, oh well, he's a former president. You know what? I won't talk about him when he is convicted of a crime and not eligible to be president anymore because at this point he is still like literally able to be president under the Constitution because he could be in jail or in his Mar-a-Lago estate under house arrest running the country. I mean, that's insane. I mean, so TDS missed me with that. I mean,
So,
that's
so I got one last question before I let you go. When you mentioned he could be in jail or in his estate at Mar-a-Lago, do you see President Trump, a former commander in chief, as ever being incarcerated even for a day?
I mean, the thing that Donald Trump is really good at is being white and rich, and he's gotten away with a lot in his life. So like as a fellow white person, like I can attest to that. But like the reason why he hasn't been in jail is because of those very factors. He is a white, rich man who has had everybody his entire life has faced no accountability because he's wealthy. If you or I did any of the things that he did with those classified documents, or even um, the even the hush money case in New York, I mean, Michael Cohen went to jail, and Donald Trump was listed
Yeah,
as individual one in Michael Cohen's crime. I mean, this man would be in prison. He would, and he should probably be in prison, but the system allows him to not be in prison because one, he like I said, he's a reality TV star that's rich, he's white, former president. Sure, it looks bad on the surface that this is happening to him, but he did this to himself. He has nobody to blame but himself.
yeah,
This is not Biden coming after his opponent. This is not World War II Germany. This is what you get when you do something illegal. And he is facing consequences for the first time in his life
fair
as a
enough.
7-7-year-old man.
All right, I gotta go, Z-Pack. Appreciate it. 7 7 year old man. Good talk, man.
Always
Appreciate you
always
coming in.
love it. Always love it, handsome. Your connection's a little wonky. I don't know if anybody else is having that problem either. It's kind of in and out, but I'll
Yeah,
dip
I'm
down.
noticing it too. Yeah. All right.
All right. Well,
Okay. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
noticing it for some reason. I gotta get a stronger router. What case?
And I'm noticing that when I'm in a man cave here, I'm having a little bit of connection issue, so I do apologize for that. I'll try to continue to keep it moving. Hopefully, on the next caller here, because my YouTube connection looks like it's having problems too. I always look for good people, and they come all shapes and flavors. I like that comment. I do like that, but yeah, it looks like I'm having a bunch of connection issues here. So, because I want to bring somebody in on the box, but my signal looks like it's got to be pathetic. Just be honest. Both parties use Americans. I agree with that, Michael McCoy. I do agree with that. But remember, the whole purpose of electing President Trump, he's not like a typical politician. He was going to drain the swamp and do all of this great shit. And now that he's getting caught up, he's pointing to regular, typical politicians as a defense. You were supposed to drain the swamp, not become a swamp creeper. I mean, you got to hold him accountable for that. He made it sound like he was going to be a great politician and go against the grain and not do all of the awful stuff that other politicians did. Now that he's getting caught, he's using criminal activities and corruption from other politicians as defense. That should not be acceptable. It should not be something we accept. I would love to know how much Trump has spent on legal fees in his lifetime. Oh, wow. In his lifetime? Shit, I'm assuming it's got to be hundreds of millions. Gotta be. I mean, Michael Cohen was his lawyer for 20 years. I mean, you got to assume Michael Cohen has made some millions off of Trump by himself. So, yeah, it would have to be hundreds, a few hundred million easy. I don't know. I cannot bring my next guest up, but I do apologize. But yeah, it's the app is not letting me do it. But for you guys that are sharing the line, by the way, if you this type of dialogue, generally it's with callers when my signal is stronger. Go ahead and follow the program. This is what we do. But the whole purpose we were talking about was whether President Trump broke any law. Did he actually commit a crime? Those four charges: inciting an insurrection, conspiring to defraud the United States, conspiring to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiring against people's civil right to have their vote counted. I think that I'm going to say with confidence that he's going to fall victim to all 40 charges. I think a couple of them are fairly easy to go with, such as conspiring against people's right to have their vote counted. If the fake electors thing turns out to be the case, I think that's a slam dunk, and it's pretty easy to show whether they were using phony paperwork that they had no certified right to use to change elections on behalf of President Trump. I don't think that's a hard one. Very similar to the documents case that they're going with Trump down in Florida. How hard is it to prove if the document in his possession was classified or not? I think that's a pretty easy case to prove, whether you're defending Trump or you convicted him. It's pretty easy to prove if he had a document that was not classified or that he had already declassified. Now, this whole notion that he could think a document into a declassified state, I think we all know that is not true. I think everybody knows that you cannot declassify a document in secret without telling any damn body at all. Just keeping it in your mind that you can't do that. So in regards to the declassified documents, things like that, it's pretty easy to prove whether he had stuff he shouldn't or he did not. If you classify a document, there has to be a trail to show the date and time he declassified the document. I mean, that's a pretty easy one to prove. So I cannot see what the big argument on that one is. Same thing with folks suggesting that he was cooperating versus lying. I think that's pretty easy to prove. I don't believe the federal government is going after him on charges that are going to be very difficult to prove. I mean, you're talking about a former president of the United States. You're not just going to charge him with bullshit that you know he can easily fight his way out of, certainly knowing how strong President Trump's base is, knowing they ain't gonna believe shit anyway. You're not gonna try him with something unless you know you got a fairly strong case. You can't just come at him willy-nilly with some bullshit. So I think most of the stuff they're coming at him with the exception of the inciting an insurrection case. I think that one may be a little hard to prove because that's the free speech deal. But the rest of that shit, I think it's easy to prove he's either innocent or guilty. I don't think there's a lot of wiggle room in there. Like I said, the fake electors is going to fall under both conspiring to defraud the United States and conspiring against people's civil rights. Either they tried to do it or they didn't. It's not that hard to prove that because they had to use actual paper. There's a paper trail. And I will tell you this, Mike Pence is not helping Trump out at all because the claim is that Trump did not know that he had lost the election. That is the claim, that he has free speech, First Amendment rights to say whatever he want to say. But when he went there on January 6th, he was not trying to incite an insurrection. He truly believed he had won the election. Well, Mike Pence is going around saying just the opposite. And that I don't see how you can just overlook the second most powerful person in the country. So Mike Pence ain't known as a liar. Trump is. Trump has said all kinds of shit that we know is not true. Some take it as a joke. You know, I know more about COVID than anybody. I know more about what's going on in Afghanistan than the generals. We know Trump lies just for the fun of it. Mike Pence is not known as somebody who lies. In fact, there are suggestions that Trump even told Mike Pence, "You're too honest." So I think Mike Pence testifying against Trump is not going to help Trump out at all. Only against folks who are in the camp for Trump to the point where there's nothing you're going to say to swim. Anybody that looks at it even remotely from an unbiased position is going to put Mike Pence as a more honest person than President Trump. Doesn't matter if you believe Trump has far better policies, a better direction for America than Mike Pence. That's a legitimate point to make. But in terms of honesty, Mike Pence versus President Trump, it's like the devil versus God. It's not even close. There's no competition to who should be viewed as more honest between Mike Pence and President Trump. I would put Mike Pence above Obama. That dude ain't lying about nothing. That dude is not known to, I mean, he may be hesitant in his wording to convict Trump or say different things here and there, but I don't think I've ever heard Mike Pence being accused of lying. Never. So if he go in there and starts saying that Trump did this or Trump said that, and Trump starts suggesting that Mike Pence is lying, only MAGA is going to take that as fact. I just don't see it. So if it's one thing that needs to be done, they need to find a way to shut Mike Pence up, because Mike Pence is going all around the country right now saying that Trump was trying to cheat, trying to pressure him, and trying to do things that were not legal. And not only that, but Mike Pence is stating that Trump was told quite a ways before January 6th. Mike Pence is suggesting that Trump absolutely knew he had lost the election, and Mike Pence can even tell you who told him. So when Trump gets up there and says, "Listen, I have First Amendment free speech rights. I thought I was actually the winner on January 6th." Mike Pence can say, "No, you knew you lost, and here are the people that told you." And like I stated before, if Trump tried to say Mike Pence is lying, I don't see it. I'm a liberal. I'm not a fan of Trump or Mike Pence, but like I stated, I would put Mike Pence as being probably even more honest than Barack Obama. That dude don't lie. That dude ain't known for lying. As Lex Luthor said to Superman, "Why would I want to be president? I lose all my power," and that's what happened. That's what happened. Trump's election put light on his shade. Michael Preston, 100% agree with you. President Trump could have written off into the sunset a very wealthy, highly respected man. Why he chose to get involved in politics, certainly from the way he decided to do it, it makes no sense at all. It just doesn't. I mean, same thing with Rudolph Giuliani. Could have rode off into the sunset, well-respected man, damn near had statues in New York. Now he's not even welcome in that city. I don't get it, other than just a simple pursuit of power, maybe. But yeah, it didn't go well it certainly didn't go well for Mike Pence. Possibility that Trump may ultimately survive some of this stuff. Mike Pence's reputation is over with. Not to mention his finances, because Dominion voting machines is going to take a chunk of his money. Lost his ability to practice law. I mean, I don't assume he's getting older, but still, it's just another form of disgrace. There's a lot of folks that were basically riding with Trump and threw it all away. I mean, literally, how many that have been riding with Trump that have went to jail strictly because of President Trump? Lost their careers, lost their wives, some of them lost their freedom, strictly because of Trump. He hasn't went down yet, but he has taken a lot of people down already. I mean, like, he's putting so many folks, he's taking so many folks down that he could land on them as cushion. There's that many people padded below that he's thrown down there already. So, no, it hasn't been good. Why do you think Obama is honest? I said that I believe Mike Pence would be considered as more honest than Obama. I didn't say Obama was totally honest. I mean, you want your doctor, you can keep your doctor. That's a lie that Obama told. I don't know any lie that Mike Pence is known for telling. So if he ends up testifying against Trump getting up there and saying Mike Pence is lying, I just do not see it flying very well. If Mike Pence says I took down notes and you told me specifically to do that or that, and it was a crime, I'm gonna ride with Mike Pence on that. But I do believe Mike Pence is probably one of the most honest politicians out there. I don't agree with him politically on a damn thing, but I do believe that man is honest. He's not Mitch McConnell. He's not Barack Obama or Joe Biden. No, I think he's a pretty honest guy, an honest guy to a fault, even to the point where President Trump told him, "You too honest." So I really think that's the problem. Team Carter said Mike Pence has lied for Trump. Give me an example. I like to hear that. Give me an example. What did Mike Pence say? Now, Mike Pence has been soft on coming correct about Trump. Sarah Huckabee Sanders is another one that would often try to spin and say crazy shit in defense of Trump. But it's a difference between Mike Pence, Tim Scott, Nikki Haley beating around the bush to say how they really feel about Trump, as opposed to outright lying. So I like to hear the out. You say Mike Pence told an outright lie in regards to Trump. I like to hear that. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I don't recall it. I mean, I watch a lot of this shit. When I hear them saying, I'm like, you lying or this, I've said that many times. I haven't seen where Mike Pence, said something that I believe was a hardcore lie in favor of Trump. Like I said, maybe I'm wrong. Let me know what you believe he's lied about. Pence told a lie he was told to tell about COVID. Are you telling me that Mike Pence suggested that COVID was going to be gone by April? I mean, I like I said, I haven't heard of any lies that Mike Pence. What lie did Mike Pence echo that he was told about COVID and that he knew was a lie while he was saying it also? Because remember, COVID was a pandemic, a new, what they call it, a novel virus. People did not know what COVID was all about. So there are people who told lies about COVID, including Dr. Fauci. Not necessarily because they were intending to lie, but some of it was ignorance. So I would love to know what Mike Pence said was a lie about that, or whatever the case may be. But I do see Mike Pence as a fairly honest politician. Keep in mind the Republican Party, particularly Trump supporters that are discrediting Mike Pence now, up to January 5th, they held him in high regards as well. It was only on January 6th when Mike Pence refused to not certify the election that he became public enemy number one. But 99% of President Trump's term, they held Mike Pence in high regard, which is crazy that you could do that all to that man just because he did what he thought was right. Didn't even give the man the benefit of the doubt. Either you do what Trump is telling you to do or go to hell. That's how they kind of view it. Either you do what Trump is telling you to do or go to hell. Who gives a shit who you talk to or what they told you was right or wrong? Trump says you could overturn the election. You do what he said. Damn everybody else. That was to me was really unfair to do to Mike Pence. And like I said, I don't have any love for Mike Pence at all, but yeah, that was wrong. The way that party has treated Mike Pence, up to and including suggesting he loses his life. I mean, that was really wrong. Looking in the comments, inbox says BS. I'd like to know what do you mean by that? I never heard Mike Pence say he knew just because someone told him means nothing. You never heard Mike Pence say he knew what? I don't get your comment there. Yeah, I hate that my connection is slow because I had some folks in the box, but Yeah, my connection is all fucked up on both of the platforms looking like. So yeah, most likely I'm at the end of getting a more powerful router because I'm below deck right now, and I guess it doesn't. If the signal is good, something like that. I mean, it fixes. I do enjoy talking to you folks, but maybe I'll do that this weekend. But yeah, I just looking at the Chargers real quick. My humble opinion: did he break any laws in regards to these four charges? I think the answer is yeah. I'm not saying that there's a confirmation he broke all of them, but in regards to those fake electors, I think that is a very, very easy one to prove. Just if they were going to overturn the election in those 7 states, Michigan, Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin. I mean, if they were trying to do that, not only do you have fake electors where they're literally going to have paperwork showing a paper trail of what they were trying to do, but you're also going to have officials in those states telling you that they were trying to do it. Like in Georgia, for instance, the governor of Georgia is a Republican, Governor Kemp. He's saying that they were doing it. So, and that's another issue because you hear Trump, he always suggests that it's the liberals trying to everybody that's in these cases are Republicans. Jack Smith is not bringing up the name of any Democrat. Everybody in these cases are Republican. There are no Democrats going after Trump in this. Now, I get that anybody that goes after Trump instantly becomes a rhino and or a Democrat. That's the MAGA way of thinking, because Mueller's a Republican, but once he started going after Trump, he became a Democrat. Same thing is going to be with whether we're talking Mitch McConnell, Mitt Romney, John McCain. The minute you start going after Trump, you're no longer a Republican. You become a rhino or a Democrat. That's, it is what it is. But there are no Republicans, co-conspirators, folks working with the government. There are no Democrats in this at all. It's all Republicans. The whole, whether we're talking folks being charged or folks cooperating to charge Trump, everybody involved in this is a Republican. Many of them are from his inner circle. So the notion that it is the liberals or President Biden is going, no, this is a Republican on Republican argument. You are stuck in a Democrat Republican parade. No, I'm just giving you my analysis on the case. I'm stuck in Republican versus Democrat. I'm telling you what folks who support Trump are saying. What Trump himself is saying. President Trump himself is claiming that this is a liberal attack to prevent him from becoming president. This is an attack by President Biden to go after his opposition. That is what President Trump is saying himself. There's no evidence that Biden is involved in this. Biden is not even talking about the case to the point where even Obama met with Biden the other day and is basically telling him, you are not beating Trump by much. You need to become more aggressive and stop taking a back seat. Even Obama is telling him that. Because we know damn well that if the tables were turned and it was Biden getting indicted over and over again, Trump would be bringing that shit up all day, every day. I say the same thing about Ron DeSantis, Tim Scott, and Nikki Haley not attacking Trump. If any of those folks, Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, Tim Scott, Chris Christie, Vivek was any of them were facing all these indictments, Trump would be using that shit as a ramrod, attacking them every day on it. Yet here, all of them are trying to be kind and gentle with President Trump. You got Tim Scott doing commercials talking about the far left fears him and Biden. You're never going to get a chance to go after Biden if you don't beat Trump. He's actually taking money from donors to do commercials talking about how much he could beat Biden. You got like 6% in the polls talking about Tim Scott. You're not even close to even meeting Biden. If you really want to have a viable race, you need to be talking about Trump. All the Tim Scott commercials are about the liberals and President Biden, as if there is no such thing as a primary election coming up. You're never going to see Biden. Now, many folks do believe, and yours truly is one of them, that Tim Scott is seeking a cabinet position. Just like, I don't know about Nikki Haley, because she already had him. I don't know what the hell Nikki Haley is doing. Maybe he's just trying to raise money. But Tim Scott is trying to get a job. He's trying to become a fucking, what was the guy's name? Ben Carson. Something like that. You know, Ben Carson, Pete Buttigieg. Just get a cabinet position. That's what Tim Scott is trying to do. Is trying to get an easy, cushy ass cabinet position. He is not going to beat Trump. Not going to come close to it. You certainly are not going to defeat somebody by not talking about it. Now, there's a debate coming up this month. I mean, this is a primary when they're running against each other. What are they going to get up and talk about Biden? I mean, if you're all afraid to talk about President Trump, you want to have Chris Christie up there beating the shit out of Trump. All the rest of them are going to talk about Biden, even though the primary is the election that they're actually in. It makes no sense at all. But they are avoiding Trump like he's Suge Knight or something. I mean, it's crazy. We'll see. We'll see. I do believe that Tim Scott and possibly Nikki Haley are just simply seeking to be on Trump's Trump administration as a cabinet position. And I'm pretty sure that if Trump were to win, he would give Tim Scott a cabinet position for sure. Because Tim Scott has been, for the most part, speaking favorably of Trump. Ron DeSantis, on the other hand, I don't know. Because Ron DeSantis has started kind of attacking Trump. He, too, has been kind of mild on it. But he has kind of started launching a few attacks on President Trump. So I don't know about Ron DeSantis, but Tim Scott would definitely get a position on Trump's cabinet, and I think that's what he is seeking. Looking in the comments, I really hate that my TikTok is all fucked up. So for you folks that were trying to get on, there's nothing I can do. I can reset the live, but then I can throw everybody out. There's a few hundred of you in here on TikTok. Looking on the other one, what is the point of Chris? He's lying to himself also. Well, you know something? Chris Christie, in my humble opinion, I believe that, I don't know if he necessarily believes that he has a chance of winning at all. I personally do not think he has a chance of winning. However, maybe he truly believes that Trump is a danger to the country. That's what he said. And that he's just simply trying to be a spoiler. No different than RFK, Robert Kennedy. Nobody thinks that Robert Kennedy is going to come close to beating Biden. Maybe he's trying to do something else. You know, talking about COVID and some of the things that Robert Kennedy is talking about. What would make him ever come across as a Democrat? There's nothing about Robert Kennedy that sounds Democratic. So, folks ask, like what you just asked in the comments, what is the purpose of Chris Christie? Shit, what is the purpose of Robert Kennedy? What Chris Christie has done is essentially became the liberals' version of Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard was the one that was constantly bashing Clinton, bashing the liberals. In fact, Tulsi Gabbard bashed the liberals so much that she ultimately switched over and became a Republican. She was always on Fox News. They were always, they enjoyed letting her bash the hell out of Clinton's, bash the hell out of Obama, bash the hell out of well-known liberals like Biden. She essentially was indeed a dino, a D-I-N-O, or Democratic name only. The right loved her. Well, Chris Christie is turning into the rhino for us. Now, I don't submit to the theory that Chris Christie is a rhino. I don't believe that. I believe, I've said it before numerous times, that Trump, very similar to Bernie Sanders, neither one of them are a representative of the party they're in. Bernie Sanders is not a Democrat. Trump is not a Republican. But they needed access to the money from those departments, the DNC, the RNC. They needed access to run the campaign. So they ran as a Democrat with Bernie Sanders. Trump ran as a Republican. And if you notice, Bernie Sanders had a hell of a lot of pushback from traditional members in the Democratic Party. Just like Trump gets a hell of a lot of pushback from traditional members in the Republican Party. Because fact is, you are not one of us. That's what Democrats are telling Bernie Sanders with all this socialist shit. And that's what Republicans are telling Trump with him calling everybody else a rhino and taking away their affiliation because he don't like them. You're not one of us. You're just running as one of us to get access to the money. And I do believe that Trump is the true rhino. He is not a Republican. What he's trying to do is change the Republican Party into the MAGA Party. Same thing Bernie Sanders was trying to change the Democratic Party into a socialist party. But Bernie Sanders doesn't come along and say you're not a real Democrat. Bernie Sanders weren't doing that kind of shit. Trump calling Borregos and all kinds of crazy shit when he's the one that's not, he is the one that is actually not a legitimate Republican. So it is what it is, though. But yeah, and he's going to have that type of problem. I mean, even right now, who's the Senate Majority Leader? Mitch McConnell, the lead senator for the Republican Party. There's no denying that Mitch McConnell's not a big fan of Trump at this point. Trump has said all kinds of negative shit about him, too. Trump likes to get in fights. MAGA does not like to see Trump get hit back. But I say it all the time. You can't just go around punching every damn body with no consequence. So just to wrap it up, in regards to these 4 charges, I do believe it'll be pretty easy to go with 3 of them. Proving that he incited an insurrection will probably be the most difficult one. But I don't think conspiring to defraud the United States, conspiring against people's civil right to have their vote counted, and the 4th one being conspiring to obstruct an official proceeding. I think those would be pretty easy to prove. Certainly with Mike Pence making it clear. Also, too, when you start talking about come out on January 6th, it's going to be wild and all of that. I think it's pretty clear that the goal was to, at the very least, interfere with the transition of power. Come out here and save your country. If you don't do something, you're not going to have a country. And we can say the part about Trump saying go peacefully and all that stuff. But by the time Trump got on stage and told folks to go to the Capitol building peacefully, Steve Bannon and Rudolph Giuliani had gave some very insightful speeches. So you can't let Trump get up there and say go peacefully and then ignore all of his opening acts. I mean, he didn't get up there and correct what Rudolph Giuliani said and said that was wrong. He didn't get up there and correct Steve Bannon. These folks are talking about taking aggressive action. Rudolph Giuliani and Steve Bannon did not say go peacefully. And then Trump gets up there after them, doesn't say anything about all the harsh stuff they said. And we're supposed to just say, well, he said go peacefully, so none of that counted. That's going to be something hard to get by the jury, in my opinion. That's going to be a tough one. But we'll see how it goes. Looking in the comments, Bob says RFK Jr. is an old school Democrat. Yeah, but right now the Democratic Party is not electing old school Democrats. Hell, an old school Democrat is a racist Confederate. We're not electing those either. But I do get your point that, maybe in the 80s or something, going back a bit further, he would have been more desirable to the Democratic Party. Remember, the Democratic Party was anti-LGBT, more tougher on crime and a lot of things like that. But that's not where the Democratic voters' heart is today. What RFK Jr. is running on does not fit the narrative of a typical current Democrat. He's not where we at now. He's just not. Looking at the comments here, Pence is beginning to open up and try to beat Trump. Mandy's Candy. I don't know if it's just Pence opening up with an effort to beat Trump. What about the possibility that he thinks he might actually be doing what is right? You gotta assume with him dealing with folks threatening to kill him on January 6th, people threatening to take his life, him coming out and saying Trump was reckless to put his life in danger. You gotta assume his family, his wife, is like, why the heck did this guy get away with that? Trump, according to Mike Pence, did not even check on him for several days after January 6th. So not only did Mike Pence have folks threatening to kill him, Secret Service had to rush him out of the building for his safety, and Trump did not even do him the solid of checking to make sure the man was okay. You know who he got a call from? Nancy Pelosi. So his family has got to be looking at Mike Pence like, you look wimpy as hell behind what you're doing. This man treated you like shit. And here you are on television giving these soft-ass defensive answers for somebody who didn't even give a fuck if you died or not. So maybe he grew upset just from other people pushing him. Like, how you gonna run for president looking like a pussy like this? I mean, you gotta admit he looks weak as hell. Like I stated before, you think Trump would be acting like Mike Pence if the tables were turned? If Trump had his life, where you got Secret Service rushing him out of a building because Mike Pence's supporters were talking about hanging him, and now Mike Pence has got like 73 charges on him, you think Trump would be speaking softly about Mike Pence? He would be hammering that dude. He would be talking about that dude all over the country like, this dude is a criminal. You don't want to elect him. But then it's the reverse, and Mike Pence is softer than a hostess Twinkie. That's gotta be looking bad to him. I would assume if Mike Pence is having town halls or meeting constituents, they're walking up to him and telling him, like, you look weak on this, man. If you really want to be Trump, there's no way you're going to be walking up defending a guy like this. You look weak as hell. Now, I don't think anybody believes Mike Pence has a chance in hell anyway, but still, you look weak as hell, being afraid to even admit if he was trying to put you in danger on January 6th. So, yeah, but anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. At the end of the day, I do believe 3 of the 4 charges just levied against Trump are fairly cut and dry. I think it'll be very easy for either Trump to disprove them or for Jack Smith to prove them. Same thing, I said the same thing also in regards to the documents case in Florida. Now, the judge down there is different from the judge in D.C. Very liberal judge in D.C., very Republican, conservative judge down in Florida. In fact, the judge in Florida, Trump appointed himself to that job. So there may be some play there. But in regards to the documents case, how hard is it to prove that the document he had in his possession was either classified or not? I think that's pretty simple. The only defense Trump had to the documents case, where you let Biden get away with it or you let Mike Pence get away with it. And as I stated at the beginning of this video, pointing to someone else that got away with the crime that you're committing is never going to be a defense. As I said before, every single crime that anyone in America can be charged with, somebody else committed that same crime and got away with it. You can't go to court and say, you can't get a speeding ticket because some dude on the highway was speeding and you can get him. That's not a defense. So at the end of the day, they can prove if the documents he had in his possession were classified or not, and he'll be able to say whether they were declassified or not. I don't think there's much else to that, with one exception, which kind of applies to all of these damn cases. And that is President Trump seeking to delay this shit as long as possible. Because if he can delay it and become president, he can then start, working the mechanics of it. But I think the feds are coming after him with a bunch of stuff that's going to be very easy to get to the bottom of, whether it was guilty or not. As always, folks, I do appreciate you guys rolling with your boy. I do apologize for the pathetic internet connection. I assure you I'm going to be working on that, trying to get that up to par. In fact, the phone went from 5G to 4G, so I know I had a problem. And the same thing with you folks on YouTube. I do appreciate that. A few of you guys who did gift your boy one subscription on TikTok. I appreciate all of that shit. Certainly in this evening with such a poor signal. Do appreciate that. Same thing with the comments. Catch you guys on the next one.